Hey, Humvee fanatics, welcome back to the channel. So we've got the fiberglass pods, structurally sound. They're not pretty, but they're solid, and they'll do what we need to. The speakers fit into them well, so we should be ready to go as far as starting to get these smoothed out where we can put some primer in and ultimately get them painted and where they won't look like shit. Anyway, so I've already done a little bit of sanding on these, as you can see. I do start off with 220 with an orbital sander, a little palm grit orbital, and just aim for the flat surfaces across the top. What I'm after is not really trying to get it smooth, but more to deburr it, get rid of any kind of drips and pimples and little fiberglass whiskers that are standing out that might cut your hand or whatnot. You're going to have some pits, and that's fine, but the smoother you can make it now, the less work you're going to spend with the filler and more sanding, because that's really what takes the longest when working with fiberglass, is getting this prepped for paint. But like I said, do some sanding, focus more on the surfaces that you know you're going to see. I mean, obviously the back of this is not going to be seen when it's inside the truck, so I'm not as concerned about the back. I am going to try to get it all smooth, but the main places I'm going to be focused on is obviously the front. There's going to be a grill that goes over the top of that, but especially in here on these curves, on surfaces that might actually be seen if somebody's looking at an angle inside the truck. I really want to focus on trying to get that smooth. But anyway, like I said, now once you've got it sanded to where you can rub your hands on it, you're not feeling the whiskers and the prods and pokes and little dimples and whatnot, then it's time to start playing around with the light body filler. So let's get started mixing some of that up, and I'll show you kind of how I go about doing this. All right, so what you're going to need for this, obviously you're going to need the lightweight filler. You're going to need the cream hardener that goes with the filler itself. Little Phillips screwdriver just to be able to get the lid off, just like any regular paint can. I like these little plastic putty scrapers. They're easy for mixing the stuff up on cardboard, which I like to do my stuff on cardboard. I can reuse it over and over again, scrape the excess off, and it's just trash I'm ultimately going to throw away. So if you keep pizza boxes or Amazon boxes or stuff like that around, you can cut these open and have a nice little platter to be able to work with the primer as you mix and as you smear it on your structure. But I like these little plastic putty scrapers. You can clean them off over and over and over again and reuse them. When they finally get nasty enough, you just throw them away. They're cheap. But anyways, let's go ahead and get this started. Oh yeah, I also like unsharpened pencils. They make really good tools for mixing up these small cans. So anyways, let's get started. So I just like to give mine a quick stir, even though I've used it recently. I like to give it a quick stir just to make sure I don't have any of I don't have any liquid or any kind of loose liquid at the top of it. I like to get it kind of where it's, consistent. And it's really a good idea to be wearing gloves with this. I mean, it's not as bad as fiberglass resin, but obviously if you get this on your clothes, it can make a bit of a mess. So anyway, so what I typically try to do when I'm doing this, I usually work and this is just me from experience with my climate and whatnot. It might be different for where you're at. I'm down here southeast Texas. It's very hot, it's very humid, so things may change depending on your humidity and your climate as to how quickly this stuff runs with. But anyway, usually what I wind up doing, I try to work in increments that are about a 3-inch, 2.5 to 3 inch circle. So I typically try to make a little 2.5 to 3 inch blob, just about a 1/4 inch thick or 1/8 to a 1/4 inch thick, but a little 2.5 to 3 inch blob. And I like to get it spread out, and that's about good for me. I don't like to work with too much more than that. I either find that I've got too much excess, or it starts turning to snot a little bit too easy, or a little bit too soon, and it's not as easy to use. So once I have it smeared out, I'll throw the lid back on so we don't get anything back in there. And kind of knead the cream hardener. What I try to do when I have a nice little 3-inch blob like this, I try to make a line across the middle of it, just a steady, smooth line. About like that, just maybe a little tiny bit more. About like so. And then I'll to use my putty scraper, and I'll just keep folding the stuff over. And you'll know when you're getting a good mix, is it'll actually start turning color, whether your hardener's blue or green. But as you start kind of mixing it in, you'll see all of the putty start to kind of have more of a light blue color with this stuff, or more of a light green, depending on what your hardener is and what your material is. But notice it's changing color. So we want a good solid, consistent color with it. And I'll just keep folding it over until I feel like I've got a pretty good mix with it. And once I've got the mix that I want, I can start spreading this around where I want it. And go ahead and do it liberally. I mean, the main thing you're after is fill. You're trying to fill the pits. You're going to be doing a lot of sanding at this point, so it's not that big a deal to have too much excess on this. You're going to be sanding it away. Yeah, you'll have a little bit more sanding to do at the beginning, but the good part is you do this liberally at first, and you'll get as many of the pits filled up fast as you can, and it'll make this kind of start to come together a lot quicker. Filler on the pods themselves, and it's hardened. Then comes the sanding. So I start off with an orbital sander, doing this very lightly. I'm running a 220, just use this very lightly just to try to get rid of some of the burrs and start getting this down. The big trick is not to take off a ton, but to get this nice and smooth, get it down to an easy surface to start working with. When you start getting it down to a nice smooth surface, you'll really want to start doing some hand sanding. So again, light is better. You don't want to take off too much, because then you start having to fill back in. So let's start getting some sanding done.
I am a new man, I am the chosen one, my spirit is renewed, I am a...
Alright, once we've got the burrs and whatnot off this and it's relatively smooth, it's time to start hand sanding. Again, you want to focus on the surfaces that are going to be most visible. Obviously with this in the truck, we're going to see more of this. See more of the face and see more of this area periodically. Some of this, you won't really see much of the back. So I want to focus on getting a lot of my smoothness done there more than anything else. Everything I want smooth, but ideally those areas that'll be visible. So I want to go through here and start trying to get the curves all nice and smooth. So we'll start off with some 220 to try to get this down, and then we'll work down to 400 and so on to start getting it down. But obviously there's going to be a lot of this. So the more I go through doing this with some smooth to get out what I can, we may have to go back in, put a little bit more filler in if there's any pits, and just keep working until I get a full smooth surface. So let's do the hand sanding.
To know the truth about the King, the truth of verity.
Alright, so I've been doing a lot of filling, sanding. We're getting these pretty well along. We've gone down to where we're sticking pretty much to the 220. I'm getting pretty close to where I'm going to start using the 400. As you get further and further into this, when you're getting things smoother and smoother, you start to work on much smaller areas. As you're going through these, you'll find little spots that you need to focus on. Like I can see a little divot in here. I really kind of need to put a little bit more filler, and now you can kind of fill it. Needs a little bit of filler and kind of a smooth as sand. Some of these need a little bit more filler up in here. What I like to do is get me a little graphite pencil and just circle, make a little arrow or whatever, highlight areas that, hey, look, hey, you're gonna have spots in here you need to go work on. But that way I can look at these and identify where I need to be doing these really fast, because again, as you're getting more and more detailed into these and getting them more and more done, you're going to be working with smaller and smaller amounts of the filler, and you want to be able to use that faster and faster, obviously, because this stuff's going to dry and you don't want it to turn to snot before you can actually be effective with it. So I like to identify what I need to work on and just hit them as quick as I can, go in, smooth them, and then let them dry. That way I'm not working on something and looking through it while this is all drying up to snot. I'm not wasting my time looking around my objects. So I'll go through here and identify, hey, I need to be looking here, put a little bit more there, a little bit more here, a little bit more there, and just kind of go through and hit them all and try to accommodate as much as you can as quickly as possible. That way you maximize your amount rather than letting too much of this go to waste. something else, just as you're working with this, as you get further in, you need to focus more on your sanding becoming less and less small areas and more whole object, especially on the contoured areas, the surfaces that are going to be seen a lot of. If you focus too much on these, you wind up with uneven pits, and it becomes a kind of a back and forth, add filler, sand too much, one side's a little too high, one side's a little too low, and you wind up with this back and forth game. So ideally, as you're getting further and further into these, you want to be focusing to where you're sanding really the whole object in one area. Now granted, when you put a little on, you want to get it down even, but you need to be focusing your sanding on the entire object more and more as you get more and more detailed into this. Obviously, when you get to where you're sanding with 400 and 800, then it becomes a situation where you're really working the entire surface. At that point, you're not really as much trying to fill as much as you are trying to eliminate little imperfections, little scratches, little divots, things like that. So anyways, let me finish identifying a couple of spots where I need to touch up, and then we'll dive into a little bit more filler and keep adding into these. All right, stick with me.
And the need I lead to rest. Now we're coming back to the kingdom of the light.
All right, so we've got everything smoothed out on these pods. All the little pits are filled in, or at least the big pits and edges and everything are pretty well filled in. So it's time to start bringing this down a little bit smoother and a little bit smoother. Working here with the last little bit of 220. And I've got some 400 and some 800. At this point, since I'm not really focusing on any one particular area, really focusing on everything all at once, just to try to keep uniformity. When you sand, you really want to work the whole surface. So at this point, I just kind of don't want to do things one direction. I want to kind of keep things moving uniform all the way across and try to get as even a stroke all the way through, as even a stroke and as even a pressure as I possibly can. So we're just gonna go through here and sand with the 220. We'll switch over to a little bit of 400 and just try to get the last of the little scuffs and scratches out of this that really I can't even see or can't feel, and just get it as smooth as I possibly can. The smoother we can go here, the less we're gonna have to worry about building up with the 2K primer. So let's get a little bit more sanding done on these, and that last little crack I've got to fill on this one, and we should have these pretty well ready for primer. All right, let's get it done. All right, so I think we're ready for prime and paint. Quick recap. What we wound up doing is going through with lots of body filler repetitively. Started off with some, actually 180 grit is what I actually started with, just to kind of take the chunks off, and then went down to 220, sanded everything fully 220, repetitively went in, filled in any kind of pits or divots that needed to be, and then just slowly worked it down until we got everything nice and smooth, filling in whatever pits we needed to, resand, fill, resand, and I worked it all the way down through 400 grit. And they're still a little bit dusty, but I think they're smooth enough that they're ready for some 2K high build primer, and we should be doing that here in the next couple of days. So I guess I'll see you guys on the next video. Thanks for hanging out and working with me, and see you next time.